Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Your friend Spencer here. I want to talk to you on the subject, does God accept all forms of worship? Now, that seems to be the running theme for those who oppose the arguments that are made on my channel. And they just say, it doesn't matter how you worship or why you worship or in what manner you worship, as long as you're worshiping in some way. And I want to talk to you about this subject for just a few moments. Now, there are many people out there who would debate rather strongly with me that it doesn't matter what your church looks like. If your church looks like this, it's great. Or if your church looks something like this, it really doesn't matter. And there are those who strongly argue that stuff. And they say, all you people that are like you, Brother Spencer, all you worry about is padded pews and you're bothered by purple lights, when really it goes much deeper than that. Some people out there say, well, it doesn't matter if your worship music looks something like this, or if the music that you listen to looks something like this. It just doesn't matter. And they make some strong arguments and some valid arguments, and they say, it doesn't matter if you're wearing leather pants or whatever, or if you're wearing a suit and look like Donald Trump, you can still be immoral either way. And I guess I would agree with that. But the question is, does it matter how you worship and in what way you worship? I would say the answer to that is yes, because God does not accept all forms of worship. Now, listen, I was born in the Southeast United States. I was raised in the Southeast United States, and I have preached from coast to coast across this country. Now, let me just tell you that the people in Georgia, and when they sing their hymns, they do not sing it exactly the same way as the people in Minneapolis, Minnesota sing. Okay, so there is some differences there. Now, I've been spending many years, past 12 years of my life, going in and out of Kenya and Africa. And I would tell you there is some differences in the way the Africans sing their music as opposed to the way American people sing their music. And I'm not saying that there's no room for that. But I am saying that there are some forms of worship that God just simply does not accept. Now, years ago, I had a conversation with a guy, and it was a very strange conversation. I was working a job. I was actually I'd come home from Christmas break at Bible college there in Tennessee, and I was working for a guy at the church who did concrete work, and I was just trying to help out for about 2 weeks there before I went back to school. And I met a guy, and he was a very strange, bizarre guy. He told me that he was part Cherokee Indian, and that what he does is he doesn't really go to church. What he does, he goes to these Indian dances, and he puts all his garb on, and he described what he was wearing, and it was something similar to the picture you see here. And he says, I get all that on and put my feathers on and put my tassels on, and I get out there and I dance. And he started to kind of imitate it a little bit. It was really bizarre. And he said, I get out there and I sing in my Indian language, and I sing unto God and dance all over the place, and we do incense and smoke, and we dance around the fire. And he says, it doesn't really matter how you do it as long as you do something to the Lord. And God sees my heart as I worship Him. And he just really got emotional about the thing. And I thought to myself, there's something wrong with that. There are parameters which God accepts things. Now, people say, God is love. And basically what they mean by that is that you can do anything you want and God accepts it no matter what. And what they have done is they have misconstrued God's acceptance with God's love. Now, there are things that God does not accept. God does not accept wickedness. God does not accept sin. God does not accept flesh. And so you have to understand all that. God is a spirit, that they that worship Him must worship Him in spirit and in truth. So the two parameters by which worship is accepted by God is the spirit in which it's done, and if it lines up with truth. So when you hear a song that Hillsong puts out, and they say things about God in that song that are just not biblically true, then you have to say this is not true, legitimate worship. Now, I started studying this in the Bible, and the question that the theme of this video, does God accept all forms of worship? The answer is no. And we can find that even in the book of Genesis, chapter number 4. We find that Cain and Abel offered something unto God that was a offering. And let's see here. It says right here in verse number 4, and Abel he brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof, and the Lord had respect unto Abel and his offering. But unto Cain and unto his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And so God did not accept Cain's offering there. You see that Cain offered the fruits and the vegetables that he had, but God didn't want that. God wanted the firstlings of the flock. And so you find there that God did not accept the worship that Cain gave him. God had parameters. God had requirements. God had things that he wanted. And so God had respect unto Abel's offering and did not have respect unto Cain's offering. Now, another story, even in the book of Leviticus, you'll find here the story of Nadab and Abihu. Now, you go back to Leviticus chapter number 9, you find that Moses and Aaron made an offering unto the Lord. It's a great chapter. You ought to read it in your King James Bible. And the Bible says Moses and Aaron went into the tabernacle of the congregation and came out and blessed the people, and the glory of the Lord appeared unto all the people. And there came a fire out from before the Lord and consumed upon the altar the burnt offering and the fat, which when all the people saw, they shouted and fell on their faces. So basically, God accepted that offering. There was an offering given by Moses and Aaron, and man, the glory of the God shone, and the fire of God fell. And man, it was a wonderful thing. And but you see here, right in the very next verse, the very next chapter, the Bible says, "But Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer and put fire thereon, and put incense thereon, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he commanded them not. And there went out fire from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord." So you find there that these two guys, man, they went out and they offered something to God in a way of worship that that God did not accept. He rejected their offering. He rejected what they tried to give him. And ladies and gentlemen, put it out of your mind forever that it doesn't matter if you use rap or you use hip hop or you use pop music or you use heavy metal, that God just sees the heart. God sees the heart, and it doesn't matter how you do it as long as you do it. Can I tell you that is a biblically ignorant statement. You don't know what you're talking about when you say stuff like that, because God is a God of order. Now, God is God of love, and he loves people, but God has requirements that he places upon people. But there's ways that people want their love to be demonstrated to them, and there's requirements that people have. And God is one that has requirements. And so I want you to think about that. For those of you who say that it does not matter how you worship God, as long as you just do it somehow, it doesn't really matter. You can do it this way, you can do it that way, and all that kind of stuff. Can I tell you, you are saying something that is just not true. It's just not true. There are requirements. They that worship God must worship him in spirit, and they must worship him in truth. And so I hope I give you something to think about today. Ladies and gentlemen, Hillsong, all these other folks, they're doing the works of the flesh and saying that God accepts it. And he just doesn't. So God bless you, friend. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm.